All right, in this movie, I'm going to show you how to recolor a repeating tile pattern. And I know we haven't reviewed tile patterns yet. They're a very powerful feature, which is why I'll be devoting an entire chapter to the topic in my mastery course. But you don't have to know anything about them to recolor them. And so my idea was I've got these sort of box towers going on here. And it struck me that this one edge from the green tiles to the blue tiles should be one color. And then from the purple to the red tiles should be another color. Then the yellow tiles should be a third, and these dark areas should be a fourth, as in this final effect right here. And so the first thing that we need to do is create a color group. And so I'll go ahead and return to my starter document, and I'll select this shade of blue right there, let's say. And obviously it's my stroke that is selected as opposed to my fill. It doesn't really matter, however. So if you're working along with me, just go ahead and click on that little page icon at the bottom of the swatches panel. And I'm going to turn on the global checkbox, and I'm going to change the color mode to HSB. And then I'm going to change the hue value to 190, which is very close to cyan. I'm going to take the saturation value down to 50%, and I'll increase the brightness value to 100%. And I'll make sure the add to my library checkbox is turned off, and then click OK. All right, now we want to create a color group based on this new swatch. And to do that, make sure the swatch is selected, and then click on the little folder icon at the bottom of the swatches panel, and let's just call this guy Blues, and click OK. And you can see that we now have that shade of blue inside the new Blues group. All right, now I want to create another swatch based on the previous one, and so I'll click on the little page icon to bring up the new swatch panel. Because global was turned on for this swatch, it's turned on once again, which means I'll have a link between these swatches and the objects that are either filled or stroked with them. All right, now I'll switch the color mode yet again to HSB, and I'll take the hue value this time up to 200, and then I'm looking for a saturation of 100%, a brightness of 100% is just fine, at which point I'll click OK. All right, now to create yet another swatch by clicking on the little page icon at the bottom of the swatches panel, making sure the global checkbox is turned on, switching the color mode to HSB, then tabbing my way to the hue value, and I'm going to take it up to 240 degrees for a nice, rich, deep blue. And then I'll tab down to the brightness value and reduce it to 50% and click OK. And now we need just one more color, which is going to be for this dark area in between the cubes. And so I'll once again click on the little page icon at the bottom of the swatches panel, make sure global is turned on, change the color mode to HSB, tab my way down to the saturation value and set it to 10%, and then set the brightness value to 10% as well, and then click OK. All right, now, if you zoom out a little bit here, you'll see that all we have is a rectangle that's filled with the tile pattern. And so I'll just click on a rectangle to select it with the black arrow tool. And I want you to note here, if I make the fill active in the swatches panel, there's my little tile pattern right there called Boxed Towers. And so I could switch the pattern if I wanted to by clicking on Jive instead, but obviously that's not what I want. So I'll go ahead and click on Boxed Towers again. I just want you to see that you can save repeating tile patterns as swatches in Illustrator. And now I'll go ahead and zoom back in. And with the rectangle selected, go ahead and double click on a folder icon for the Blues group in order to bring up the Recolor Artwork dialog box. And once again, we have a kind of miracle going on here, because as you can see, yellow, which was formerly on top of these edges right there, is being mapped to the lightest blue. Green and blue, which share the forward edge right here, the left-hand edge, they are now being mapped to the medium blue. Purple and red, which are on the right-hand edge, are being mapped to the darkest blue. We've got a little bit of a problem, however, with black and gray, which we'll take care of in just a moment. So go ahead and turn on the Recolor Artwork checkbox, and I'll click on a little dialog box icon, and I'll turn back on Preserve Black because I don't want to remap black, and I'll click OK in order to accept that change. And the reason is the black is that little edge effect right there, which I do not want to modify. All right, now, problem is, if you were to look very closely at these colors here, notice how this deep blue edge right here, these 6 skewed squares, is a little bit darker than the light ones below it. And it's even more obvious up here. So these guys are a little darker than these guys down below. And that is because we've selected the wrong color reduction method. So what you need to do is click on this down pointing arrowhead next to this medium blue swatch, or really any of the swatches, it doesn't matter. Turn the Apply to All checkbox on, turn on Preserve Spot Colors, which will dim the final 2 options, and go ahead and select Exact. And watch very carefully what goes on right here. As soon as I switch to exact and click off that pop-up menu, we get darker edges that exactly match each other, which is, of course, exactly what I'm looking for. After which point, you can just go ahead and click OK in order to apply that effect. And notice, Illustrator not only updates the artwork, but it also gives us a new swatch. So I still have access to the old box tower swatch, which I can select if I like. Plus, I have access to a new swatch called Box Towers 2. And so if I want to change its name, then I would click on the flyout menu icon in the top right corner of the swatches panel, and I would choose swatch options to bring up this dialog box here. And I would just go ahead and call this guy Blue Towers, let's say, and get rid of the 2 and click OK. And now I'll press Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on the Mac to deselect my artwork. And that, folks, is how you recolor a repeating tile pattern and have the whole thing occur non-destructively so that the original pattern swatch goes unharmed here inside Illustrator.